By the end of this video, you will have all the tools at your disposal to counter every single hero that's giving you trouble in any of the matches that you play. Now, before we really jump into the guide, let's get a couple things out of the way. There are a ton of counter videos out there for specific characters, for a broad range of different characters, and on many different channels. This guide is going to be different. We're going to look at countering characters in a different way. We're going to focus down to 3 specific points: enemy players, teammates, and you yourself as a whole. So without wasting any time, let's jump in and talk about topic number 1, enemy players. A lot of counter videos right now talk about specific characters being matched up against one another, but in my eyes, that's not the way we should entirely look at it, because if you're not a pro player, depending on what level you're at, depends on the players that you're playing against. Remember, you're not playing against the computer, you're playing against real life players, so what you should do and how you should react really depends on how they're playing the game. Let's look at it this way. Depending on what hero you're playing, there's going to be hard counters for that specific hero. But if you're playing a match and you realize that the enemy teammates that you're going up against don't really know how to play their hero, you can still dominate with those characters because they're not playing their heroes properly, so there's no need to switch or do anything different. And there's a really easy way to tell if this is the case. Roughly every match that you start out playing, you don't know the enemy team. So depending on which character you pick, it's really up in the air on whether there's going to be a hard counter or any type of issue depending on hero matchups. So when you and your team leave spawn and head directly into a team fight, if you win that first team fight and then the second and then the third and so on, there's no reason to change. You're dominating, so don't do anything differently. But the very first time that you lose a team fight, you have to think to yourself and look at the enemy team composition and say, are they playing their characters well? Did they switch their characters? Does it seem like they know what they're doing? And even more importantly, is there an enemy player that seems to be dominating? Is he the reason that you just lost that team fight? Does it boil down to one character on the enemy team that is hard carrying? Because in a lot of cases, it can really boil down to one experienced player on the enemy team that is doing all the heavy lifting. And as you can start to see, there's a lot that goes into this. There's so many different situations that you can find yourself in, especially in a game where there's so many different hero compositions, different players, different ranks, and a lot of stuff is just going on in general. So if you find yourself losing in a match, you need to pinpoint one of those issues that we just talked about. Why is it that you're losing? What is actually happening in a team fight that's causing you and your team to lose? And this is going to take time and practice, so don't give up. Keep trying. It's going to take a while to get it right, but once you think you've pinpointed the problem in the first step, that's when you want to move on to step 2, teammates. And obviously, your teammates are a huge factor. You can get really good teammates, you can get mediocre teammates, you can get teammates that are throwing the game and being toxic all the time. It really just depends on who you get matched up with. And you do have some tools at your disposal to try and figure out the situation. Number 1 on the list is the scoreboard, number 2 is are people actually talking in chat, and number 3 is are people in chat not talking but they're able to hear you. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the scoreboard. This is going to allow you to see who's taking the game seriously, doing bad, doing really well, and just reflect on the entire match. So take a look at the scoreboard, evaluate it, and see what the issue is. And after that, there's a lot of different routes you could go down, but it really depends on the information that you just gathered from the scoreboard. Let's focus on a few of those. So let's say you're in a match and no one's talking, no one can hear you, or at least no one's listening. What do you do? Well, there's really only one of 2 options. If you notice that a teammate isn't doing so well, you can do everything in your power to help them out. But if that's not the case, then you need to move to step 3 and reflect on yourself. But if people are in chat, then you have a lot of power. Teamwork and team communication is really important in Overwatch. So at that point, you have a lot of options. You can talk about switching characters, whether that's you or your teammates. Just discussing anything as a team is really beneficial. You can talk about synchronizing your ultimates, what team plays you should go and do, where you should traverse the map. Anytime you can discuss anything with your team, it's going to benefit you. So what if nobody's talking, but people are in chat? Well, then I would say be a team leader, give a bunch of callouts, talk about everything that we just talked about as a team as if they were there, but by yourself. Because if someone is in the chat, they're in there for a reason if they're not talking. They're there to listen. So give them something to listen to. Give as many callouts as you possibly can that you think will help your team out as a whole. And usually going through step 2 will help you reevaluate any of the issues that you pinpointed in step 1. And now that we've covered all the information that's compacted into step 1 and 2, we need to move on on to step 3, which is you yourself. Alright, so take a good look at the hero that you're playing. Are you doing well? Are your stats good? Are the abilities that you have at your disposal really good at countering what you're going up against? But more importantly, have you played with enough characters so that you can switch? Because more often than not, it will hurt you even worse if you switch to a character that you don't have a lot of playtime with, even if that hero that you switch to is a really good counter to the characters that you're facing. So make sure that you're always playing a character that you think you can get the most value out of from yourself. And once you figure that out, then it's time to decide whether you're going to switch to counter a specific character or stay the same character because you get the most value because you've played that character all the time and you're really good with them. And we need to recognize that it might not be you who needs to switch at all. If you're playing a damage character, you might need a healer to switch, or you might need a tank to switch. It just depends on what you're going up against. And when it comes to knowing characters and specific counters, it's just going to take time. You're going to have to play the game and you're going to have to get a lot of experience in. But if you use this method while you play every single match, you're going to learn a lot more. You're going to be able to counter a lot more characters even before knowing what should be specifically hard countered. And I cannot stress this enough. It is not just about countering heroes in the game, it's about countering the players who play them. So at this point, you're pretty much doing everything that you can, but if you still feel like it's not enough, my first suggestion would be to go and learn a bunch of different heroes. That way, anytime you need to switch or something needs to be changed up, you're able to do it, but you're also able to get great value out of anything that you switch to. And if you don't like playing with a lot of different heroes, I would suggest that you master 2 specific heroes that are very far apart from each other. That way, when you do need to switch, you're able to switch your characters and get good value from both sides. And I promise, if you follow this guide, you're going to win a lot more matches, get better in general, and your games will go way smoother. But alright everyone, that about wraps it up for this video, and if you're looking for new people to play with, go ahead and join our Discord, the link's in the description. We have a lot more Overwatch content planned here on Flashwatch, so stick around, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel. Thank you guys so much, I'll catch you on the next one, Flash out.